which is our own publication here at Mediamax People Daily. Splashes of police force gone nuts from killing of innocent youths, demanding good governance, arrest and detention of protesters. Rogue security agencies now turn their guns on journalists. That is on page 4 of the People Daily, but still on the same cover page, there is an image there of an Nakuru-based journalist who was assisted by her colleague, that is Wanjeri wa Karaoke of Kameme FM and TV, after she was shot by police while covering Gen Z demos on Tuesday. The scribe was shot 3 times in the thigh, is recuperating in hospital. So that is just to peruse on page 4 of the People Daily. Abductors of regime critics linked to NIS. Whether the arrest of veteran journalist Macharia Gaidho was a case of mistaken identity or a botched one, concerns have now been raised about rampant and humiliating manner in which the DCI have been arresting and abducting perceived government critics. Interestingly, this morning, we have one of them who went through the same ordeal. That is Joshua Okayo, President, Kenya School of Law. What do you make of the headline today on the People Daily, and as well briefly, how was it like being in the hands of the abductors?
Well, thank you, Joe. You know, being in the hands of abductors is not something someone would want to remember every time. And what I can say is that I love the heading of that writing, of that newspaper, because I think it's just in order that these rots should be brought to the attention of the general public. It's true that the police and the police force has gone rogue. It's true that the police are abducting people. It is true that they are also arresting people arbitrarily, illegal arrests. And it's also true that they are maiming people. Like you've seen a journalist who's been shot 3 times, not once, not twice, thrice. And this is a journalist who's covering live events, who's just trying to, get the world to know what is happening. This is not something this is not someone on the streets shouting our chants. This is not someone who's joined in in the demos. So you can imagine these are ill-intentioned people who want to do whatever it takes to silence the voices of people who are just exercising their constitutional mandate of protesting, peacefully, as enshrined in the Constitution in Article 37. So yes, I support that. And just a little bit about, now that you've told me to give a bit of my experience, these abductors, from how they speak, from how they question you, they are sent by the government. Because what the things they were asking me were much more about who is financing, the protest against Finance Bill 2024. Asking about who is behind, who is the force behind the students, who is the force behind the young people in Kenya, who is the force behind, all these protests. And they're also asking, really, who is funding the printing of posters, banners, and everything. And they're not just asking questions. They're asking questions while beating you. This is what I went through. They were hitting me, every part of my body, because they are seeking information that I don't have, and they are meant to believe that I have that information. In short, in their heads, whoever sent them knew that, or rather thought that there's someone who's behind the demos, and it is not just an initiative of Kenyans who are feeling the pinch, of the finance bill, proposed finance bill 2024, which was, of course, ultimately rejected. Thank you. Later
on, you'll see President William Ruto blame the Ford Foundation. How did that augur with you?
And not just the Ford Foundation. These are people who do not know what they're saying, because at first, it was alleged that there are some politicians within the opposition party who are supporting this. At some point, it was no longer that. It was some journalists, some veteran journalists who are behind the protests. At some point, it was Russia, all right? At some point, it was, I don't know which other country. So they were just hanging on any information that they can get. And then now later on they settled on Ford Foundation, which after that, after that allegation, came to reveal to us that actually Ford Foundation has been at the forefront of supporting some of the government initiatives. Some MPs, and I'm happy we have an MP here. It's important that they also tell us why would they call on Ford Foundation as supporting the protests, the very same people who have been supporting some of their projects and have been paying for their air ticket to go and experience something abroad. All right, so I think it's a matter of trying to guess and trying to get reaction as to who could probably be behind the protests. But one thing they don't understand, or one thing the president doesn't understand, is that these protests are not funded by anyone. These protests are funded by Kenyans themselves. But the Gen Z say it's Jacob Juma that is funding the protests. Well, yeah, it is a spirit that still lives with us, but for the living, it is sponsored by Kenyans themselves. It is sponsored by the young people who are saving the little that they have. So, case to the to the nation and the whole world that they are tired with the opulence that is being shown by some members of the government. They are tired of these ill-intentioned bills that are being that are being initiated in the parliament. Like you see, the other day we had 3 bills on health. We had SHIF, there's the Medical Health Act, there's the third one, which I can't remember, that were all, the High Court decided that they are all unconstitutional. So you see, these are people who are trying to bring up every other idea, okay, to get to step on the Kenyans. Thank you.
I'm not 100 about David Kiplagat. Being a member of parliament and the main cause of the Gen Z protests was actually the finance bill of 2024, in which you voted in support. And that culminated to what we're witnessing today. And, even according to the People Daily, police are now forced to even abduct. Yesterday, there was a veteran journalist that was abducted in daylight. Was it not perhaps for that video? Maybe we couldn't know where he is. What's your reaction? Do you still believe these demos are funded?
Okay, thanks, Chacha, and good morning to our viewers. On the issue of what is currently happening, that actually was started by the call by the young generation to reject finance bill. And I think it's important that Kenyans have a right to question their governance, to question their leaders, elected leaders, because they are representative. And in questioning, they can use all methods that is within the law. One of it is part of the picketing. But picketing for that case should be as peaceful as possible, and it's upon the demonstrators and the organizers to make sure that at least they maintain peace, so that for those Kenyans who are not joining their rallying call, at least they can continue with their business. Now, having listened to the other side, because when we were looking at finance bill, as we shall elaborate as we go forward with this program, is that there were quite a number of programs that the government wanted to support, but because they can be differing in opinion, I think we thank the president. He's a listening president, and he was able to withdraw the finance. He didn't assent to the finance bill. So having done that, now from there, I think there is some metamorphosis that have been going on. You know, there are opportunists, and opportunists are many in Kenya. And those opportunists now encapsulated themselves using the Gen Z demonstrations to pursue other goals. And those goals, I think, they are very clear. What is happening right now is something else. In fact, my young boy that I have at home, who's also the same age as the Gen Z, initially they were very passionate, but if you talk to them now, they don't even know what's happening. It's like they have lost the whole plot. to these other groups.
So that justifies abductions?
No, I'm not saying that justifies abduction. I'm coming to that. Now, look at, I was looking at a video in a demonstration for Kitengela, and you could see all the demonstrators, they were after only one thing, to loot businesses. And every business in Kitengela was looted. So those are not a kind of demonstration that we expect from the young generation. If you look at what has been happening after the rejection of the finance bill, the demonstrators, they have never been peaceful. They are just destroying property. They are just looting property. And at that case, do we say that is still the demonstration that is actually contemplated in our constitution? So when you are now, you know, when you are now dealing with people who have become goons, you have to use now you don't expect the police to come there as if they are attending a wedding. They will have to they'll have to do their work so that they can protect the the integrity and the peace and the peaceful nature of the country. So peace has to be maintained. And for this case, I dare say that there is quite a link, because if you look at the flow of money, especially in the month of May, between various NGOs and the Ford Foundation, it lends credence to the allegation that the Ford Foundation is really really sponsoring some particular NGOs who are very prominent in terms of these demonstrations. And going forward, we cannot also allow, unless now you see it was a rejection of finance bill, they mutate to something else. Tomorrow, if you give them one step, they go for 10 steps. So you wonder now, this thing is mutating here, it comes here.
Why not meet all the demands?
This demands, it comes in bites.
Yeah. Not Ruth Amogo. You've clearly listened to, you know, Mheshimiwa David here.
Yes.
And clearly, it could be a loss, or the leaders having lost touch with the ground, still believing that these demonstrations are not organic, they could be funded, and also perhaps a justification of the extrajudicial means that the police are now enforcing. What do you make of it?
First and foremost, I find it very unfortunate, I find unfortunate some of the statements, majority of the statements that Mheshimiwa here is making, especially directed towards the fact that he says that all the demonstrators, you know, he uses words such as all the demonstrators in Kitengela were out to loot businesses. We must be categorical in labeling the kind of people who have been participating in the demonstrations that are taking place as we speak right now. There are people who have taken advantage, and I like the fact that he brought it up at the beginning. But then the people who take advantage of demonstrations are not demonstrators, are not protesters. These are people who are criminals who should be dealt with according to the law, and separated from people who are genuinely out there agitating for their rights. Secondly, the other contentious issue I find in his submissions is the fact that he says that, oh, you know, we have all these young people who should not be allowed to express their will, should not be allowed to express their feelings, their emotions about what's going on in the country, because one minute they have this demand, the next minute they have the other demand. So therefore, we do not know what else they will be demanding for after we have met the demand, you know, today's demand. We don't know what they will be demanding for tomorrow. This is how they have chosen to carry their protest. This is how they have chosen to speak for themselves, maybe according to their organization. And leaders should sit back and ask themselves, when these Gen Zs are saying we are leaderless, we are partyless, we are tribeless, we don't have a form or a structure, they should listen to these concerns. They should listen to this structure that the young people are coming up with. And basically what the young people are trying to tell them is that today we will tell you we want the cabinet gone. Tomorrow we will come back and tell you, you know what, it is not enough. We want IBC instituted. And people will, again, after that has been done, come together and ask themselves, what is the next way forward? And if you ask me, if indeed these requests that the Gen Zs have are unreasonable, then why is it that the president is actually making concessions and listening to the Gen Zs, you know? And I'm here listening to him saying that, you know, the president is a listening president, he's a person who listens to the concerns of the Mwananchi. And I ask myself, is it that why did we have to get to this point where we have to go to the point where young people are putting themselves out there in the streets and demonstrating, agitating for their rights? If indeed he was a caring president and a listening president, he surely does have advisors. And these advisors, we as Kenyans would hope, are the elected leaders that we have. What we have in this country right now, the situation we have in this country, is leaders like Mheshimiwa right here, failing to exercise or play his part, which is listening to the Mwananchi and what the Mwananchi is saying, and talking to the president and advising the president that, you know what, Mr. President, on the ground, this is what the electorate are saying. They are unhappy about this finance bill. So let us not even make the journey of proceeding with this thing, because if we proceed with it, these are the consequences. So we've had members of parliament who dissociated themselves from the Mwananchi, adopted a lifestyle that the Mwananchi found quite uncomfortable when it comes to, you know, not just uncomfortable, but quite demeaning to the ordinary Mwananchi who's trying to make a day-to-day living out of whatever it is they are doing. So an electorate, or rather a leadership that is quite detached from the Mwananchi. And then now on the question of Ford Foundation, you know, it is quite, I find it quite disingenuous of leaders to come and say that Ford Foundation has been supporting demonstrations. We know what civic organizations, or rather we know what organizations that agitate for human rights generally do. First and foremost, why is it that when Ford Foundation is organizing for trainings for example, women leaders, and a majority of the women leaders, I have credible information that proves that a great percentage of women leaders elected at the Kenya Kwanza regime were actually financed by Ford Foundation. Why is it that when they are being financed to have their women leaders take up leadership positions, they don't have an issue with it? But when it comes to the question of, Ford Foundation, if they are involved, I'm not saying they are, but if indeed they are involved, if indeed they are involved and they deny that they were not involved. For example, assuming that they were involved, what is the problem in organizations that are human rights based coming up and saying that, you know what, this is happening in Kenya, young people need to be organized and mobilized, and we can support them? And indeed they said they were not part and parcel of these demonstrations. As I finish, I would like to say I'm one of the people who went to the streets. Nobody financed me. I used my little coins, branded my own t-shirts, went out there, bought my own water, bought my own masks that I needed to use, ordered my own Ubers, as they said, and when I was done, went to KFC. When I was done with KFC, went back home peacefully. Well,
still on the same breath, I know Joshua also has a agenda to what Mheshimiwa said.
Can we make rejoinders first?
just a point of interjection.
Because we have very burning questions
of what Mbogo she has raised. It is within our constitution and our human rights to picket and call for demonstrations against an issue. That is within our constitution. But when you are informing the police, one of the things that comes clearly is that you shall maintain peace and order. So it is incumbent upon the demonstrators to make sure that they are not infiltrated by other groups and goons who are actually destroying property. Because what we are seeing, and I think Boko, you also after you have gone for demo, find some time to watch what is happening. Because what we are seeing, there is a business that was opened 3 days ago in Kitengela about it's a pizza inn or something, and the guy has not even enjoyed his sweat. And they landed on that business and they looted everything.
The point is home.
So even as it is very important that whoever is organizing demonstration, it is upon them to maintain law and order and to make sure the demonstration is as peaceful as possible, and in case of any destruction, they need to take responsibility.
Apparently, they are leaderless, and so I'm not sure who is the organizer. Joshua will be telling us that. But even before giving a rejoinder, Joshua, still on the cover pages of different dailies, just to highlight, for instance, the Daily Nation, there is a highlight there of the implosion in Azimio of Ruto dialogue. That is on the cover page of the Daily Nation. However, the main headline there is Kware man was a shy lover boy. On the Standard, a missing opposition. The opposition leaders seem to have been caught off guard in the renewed clamor for change, unlike in the years. when they gave direction on matters politics, they have this time round, left the struggle to the youth. And as well on the Star newspaper, that is Raila Kalonzo MPs failed to agree on Ruto deal. And now to Joshua, even as we about to take just a short commercial break, I understand you have a rejoinder. Also, what do you make of these Azimio leaders coming out to now dialogue on behalf of the Gen Zs?
Can I do my rejoinder first, then I get to that? I don't know whether to call you Mweshimiwa. I'm at a crossroads. Right now, I'm very cautious on, as to who to call Mweshimiwa, especially those who voted yes for the finance bill.
You can call me Kiplagat.
Mr. Kiplagat.
Yeah.
If indeed your children went to the streets and then now now they don't know what is happening, please advise them to get back to the streets. But if it was just a ploy, if you're just saying it because it is probably fashionable and what you think people will love to hear, then that is very unfortunate. Number two, if you understand how NGOs work, Ford Foundation is not an implementing institution. It has the money. It gets that money to the, to the smaller NGOs or civil society organizations. And then these smaller civil society organizations are the implementing organizations. And if you look at the records, Ford Foundation has been doing that support for as long as they have existed, right? They have been giving this money to these small NGOs and CSOs to do whatever they want. And of course, they normally have, they normally, these CSOs draw budgets, get to Ford Foundation, they approve the proposals, and then they do what? They disperse the money. That is how it works. That is how it has worked before. So if you guys think that there was a specific money meant for Kenya protesters, then you are wrong. It is the normal financing, and these CSOs are actually at the forefront of fighting for human rights, all right, for justice. So if they went to the streets, they just went to undertake one of their mandates as CSOs, one of their objects, why they were created. That is another thing. The third thing is I want to just weigh in on what Ruth said. We did not have to get here. And you saying that William Ruto is a listening president is a very unfortunate statement. We did not have to get to a place where 50+ young people have been killed. We did not have to get to a place where 60+ have been abducted. Some are still missing. Some were found dead. Others were found maimed. We did not get to a point where our young people are being maimed on the streets. Journalists being, shot at. We did not have to get here for the president to listen if he's indeed a listening president.
We'll do for a short commercial break. Your comment on the Azimio leaders now calling for dialogue.
Thank you so much for getting back on track.
As to Azimio, and let me speak to ODM as a party. ODM tries to play this big brother, in the Azimio coalition. They think they're on top of the other parties. And one thing that is happening in ODM is that there are people who are being promised positions, CS positions. And because of that, they will indeed support dialogue, because they know if they come to the table with a president, they are going to be part of the larger government and they are going to be given CS positions. But then there are those who are not going to get anything in return. So and who think that the course that the Gen Zs and the Kenyans at large have taken is the right course. So there's that rift between these two groups of people. And, well, I have credible information that yesterday, in the evening, the other rift won. I mean, the other group that won CS positions won. And ODM is going to dialogue, well, Azimio is going to dialogue with the what? With the government. But of course, in the same Azimio coalition, we have parties like DAP Kenya, who released their statement very early in the day, saying that they are not part of it. And I remember one of the statements made by the DAP Kenya party leader, Eugene Wamalwa, was that I am not boarding. That was very intriguing by then, very, very strong and short statement. Mm-hmm. And I think he maintained that yesterday when they released a statement that they're not boarding indeed.
Well, Honorable Kiplagat, why do you believe it's Azimio that will help Ruto come out of this hole?
Okay, of course, maybe what we know is that in all these issues of demonstrations, the government also had its own issues, which the president is now trying to sort. And the government of national unity comes in handy, so that at least we have a government that is representative.
By that, it's proper to pick some ODM MPs to join the cabinet.
You know, we have been accused of talking about shares and things like that. But what we want to say is that government belongs to all the people. And when government belongs to all the people, it should be as representative as possible. So kindly note also, as we talk of Azimio, we have ODM, which is Joshua is trying to say they are trying to bulldoze the others. But you bulldoze the others because of the majority of the numbers you have. 90% of Azimio MPs belong to ODM.
Well, so at that juncture, we take a short commercial break. It seems evident here that ODM has already been given a green light by the Ruto-led government to form that GNU that the Honorable Member is talking about. But of course, we still come back with this discussion. Even as today, we focus on the impact of the budget cuts. Keep the conversation going via social media platforms at K24 TV, at Joel Church, as well on SMS and WhatsApp numbers on the bottom of your screens. We'll be right back. Stay tuned.